I'm 30 now, and even though my life has moved in directions I never could have predicted, I still find myself thinking constantly about my childhood, about me and my sister, Jane. We were born just 14 months apart. I was older, but only barely, so most people assumed we were twins when we were kids. That assumption felt kind of magical back then. It made us feel like we had some invisible bond no one else could understand. In a way, I think we did. We grew up in a small, crumbling house on the east side of a town no one ever visits on purpose. Our street was filled with potholes, and the houses were mostly rotting, paint peeling off like old skin. Our dad worked in a scrapyard, and our mom cleaned motel rooms for minimum wage. We didn't have a lot, not even close, but we had each other. From as far back as I can remember, Jane and I were inseparable. We shared a room, a closet, a bed, and sometimes even the same thoughts. When one of us cried, the other did too. We whispered secrets late into the night and made up elaborate stories about our neighbors, our school teachers, and what we'd do when we were finally rich and free, which is what we called adulthood. Our favorite game was Runaway Queens. We'd pack a few peanut butter sandwiches, my dad's old flashlight, and hide under the porch pretending we were escaping to a new land where kids ruled and money grew on trees. Jane always played the brave one, shielding me from bandits and spies, even though I was technically the big sister. That was Jane, bolder than me, louder, with a kind of fierce loyalty that could scare grown men if she turned it on them. School was hell. We went to Kennedy Elementary, which might as well have been a battlefield. The building was old, the heat never worked in winter, and teachers either screamed or sighed through the day like they hated kids. Kids there weren't much better. We were easy targets, always wearing hand-me-downs from Goodwill or patched-up shoes. Some days we pretended to be sick just to stay home. But even when it was rough, we got through it together. If someone picked on Jane, I'd stand in the way. If I forgot my homework and got yelled at, Jane would say it was her fault. We took turns being strong. That was the rule. I still remember this one time in 5th grade when some older boy named Mark Delaney cornered Jane behind the gym and called her trailer trash. She didn't cry. She stared him down, fists clenched, until I ran up and punched him in the stomach. We both got detention, but it felt worth it. That night, Jane told me I was her hero. I said she was mine too. Our parents fought a lot. Loud, ugly fights that made the walls shake. Sometimes it was about money, sometimes about my dad staying out too late, sometimes nothing at all. We'd lie in bed, holding hands under the blanket, pretending we were back in Runaway Queens, hiding from dragons instead of listening to slamming doors and breaking plates. When our mom left for the first time, it was on a Tuesday. Jane was 8, and I was 9. She didn't say goodbye. She just didn't come home from work. We found out later she had moved 2 towns over and started working at a bar. She called once, maybe a week after, but Dad hung up on her. Jane cried for hours that night. I tried to distract her by putting on a puppet show using socks, but she wasn't laughing. That was the first time I saw something close in her shut down, like a door slamming shut. After that, we grew up even faster. Dad started drinking more, sleeping longer, and not asking questions. We made our own lunches, washed our own clothes, got ourselves to school. Jane started stealing small things, erasers, pencils, candy bars. She was always careful though. She'd slip a Snickers into her boot and split it with me on the walk home. I never told anyone. That was another rule. We never told on each other. One Christmas, when we were around 12 and 11, we knew we weren't getting gifts. There was no tree, no lights, nothing. I remember Jane disappearing for a few hours on Christmas Eve. When she came back, she handed me a tiny package wrapped in newspaper. Inside was a cheap secondhand necklace, a heart with half of it missing, like those BFF charms. I started crying when I opened it. She showed me the other half around her neck. She must have shoplifted it, but I didn't say anything. I still have it even now. When our mom came back a year later, everything felt off. She tried to act like things were normal. She made pancakes and tried to joke around, but the house was heavier than before. Jane refused to speak to her. I was torn. I missed her, but I was angry. Jane didn't even look at her. I remember sitting on the front steps with her one night while Mom smoked inside. "She's gonna leave again," Jane said quietly, not looking at me. "I don't care anymore." She was right. Mom was gone within a month. This time, no one cried. We hit high school, and that's when things got more complicated. We still shared everything, clothes, secrets, even a crush or two, but I started noticing changes in Jane. She was harder, quicker to snap, and she started skipping class. I think it was a way to keep control. I still followed the rules. I did my homework, applied for scholarships, tried to stay invisible. But we still had each other. We still took midnight walks in the summer, talked about running away, still left each other notes under our pillows. I wrote poems and taped them to her mirror. She made mixed CDs for me with little messages scribbled in Sharpie. I remember this night during our sophomore year. Jane had stolen a 6-pack and we sat on the roof of the abandoned gas station near the train tracks. She leaned back, watching the stars. "You think we'll ever get out of here?" she asked. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to believe it. I said yes. She nodded like she didn't believe me. When I go, I'm not looking back. It hurt to hear her say that, but I didn't argue. We made it to graduation. I was class valedictorian. Jane barely passed. She skipped the ceremony. I gave my speech anyway, looking out at the crowd and pretending she was there. That summer, we started to drift. Not by choice. Life was just pulling us in different directions. I got a scholarship to a state university 4 hours away. Jane didn't want to leave. She got a job waitressing and moved into a friend's place across town. We still talked all the time, but it wasn't the same. The last night before I left for school, she showed up at 1 a.m. with a backpack and a bottle of cheap wine. We sat on my bedroom floor, listening to music, crying, laughing. She gave me a notebook filled with doodles, notes, jokes only we understood. She'd been working on it for weeks. "Don't forget me," she whispered when she hugged me goodbye. "I could never," I said. And I haven't. Even now, all these years later, I still feel her hand in mine when I'm afraid. I still hear her laugh when I listen to those old CDs. And I still wear that broken heart necklace, the one she gave me when we had nothing but each other. Because back then, when the world was dark and cold and our lives felt like they were always on the edge of collapsing, Jane was the one who kept me going. She was my sister, my best friend, my twin flame. And no matter what came after, no matter where life dragged us, I'll never forget that we were close once. Closer than anyone knew. I don't remember the first time I heard Richard's name, but I remember the first time I saw Jane with him. It was a rainy Thursday in late September, and I had just driven back into town for the weekend. College was intense, and I was working 2 part-time jobs just to make it through, so I rarely came home anymore. But that weekend, Dad had landed in the hospital, alcohol poisoning, and I didn't want Jane handling it alone. She didn't show up at the hospital. Instead, she arrived at Dad's house 2 days later, stepping out of a sleek black car I'd never seen before, dressed like she was going to a photo shoot. Tight black dress, heels higher than anything I'd ever seen on her feet, gold chain earrings swaying as she walked. Behind her came a tall guy in an expensive coat and an even more expensive aura. Richard. He didn't look at me when we met. Just sort of nodded, his attention on his phone. Jane had changed her hair, glossy, straightened, dyed a honey blonde, and when she hugged me, I could smell perfume that probably cost more than my entire monthly rent. She didn't ask about Dad, didn't ask about me. Just said, "We're on our way to a dinner, thought we'd stop by." I stood there stunned, holding a box of leftover takeout I'd brought for her. She didn't even notice it. That was the beginning. At first, I tried to tell myself she was just excited. Love made people act a little weird. I knew that. I wanted to be happy for her, and Richard was, on paper, impressive. His family owned half of the real estate in the city. His father was some kind of mogul, the type who got invited to yacht parties and political fundraisers. His mother ran a chain of clean luxury wellness spas, and his sister had 100,000 followers on Instagram for doing basically nothing. Jane had met him while waitressing at a restaurant downtown, one of those places with gold-trimmed menus and imported olives. Richard was there for some kind of networking dinner and had asked for her number. She told me about it over text, saying it was insane and probably nothing. A week later, he was sending her roses and flying her to Palm Springs for the weekend. I didn't even know she had a passport. Within a month, Jane had moved out of her roommate's apartment and into a loft uptown that Richard's family helped her lease. She quit her job, saying it was time to focus on herself. I asked her what that meant, and she snapped, "It means I don't want to scrub plates for the rest of my life, Sarah." We started talking less. When we did talk, it felt fake. She was always rushing somewhere, always about to lose signal, always surrounded by people I'd never heard of. I once overheard a woman laughing in the background, calling Jane the peasant-turned-princess. Jane laughed with her. She didn't come home for Thanksgiving. Said Richard had surprised her with a ski trip in Colorado. Christmas came, and she sent a courier with a wrapped designer bag for me. No card, no message, just a receipt that said, $2 $100. I stared at it numb, while Dad coughed in the next room. He was deteriorating. Jane didn't visit him once. I tried calling her, begging her to come see him, but she was always too busy. "I'll send someone to check on him," she said once, like she was hiring a dog walker. I told her to stop acting like she didn't know who we were. She hung up. That winter, I want to see her in person. She was living in a luxury high-rise downtown, the kind with keycard elevators and a doorman in a tailored uniform. I stood in the lobby for 20 minutes before someone let me up. When the elevator opened to the penthouse, I nearly lost my breath. It looked like a magazine spread. White walls, glass furniture, giant windows that looked out over the city like she owned it. Jane was lounging on a couch, barefoot, sipping wine. She didn't even look surprised to see me. "I texted you," I said. "You didn't answer." "I was in a meeting." "In your living room?" She shrugged. "You don't get how things work now, Sarah. My schedule is layered." Then she introduced me to Laura, her personal stylist. Laura was in the kitchen, cutting tiny cucumbers and muttering about Jane's upcoming trip to Milan. She didn't even glance at me. "Do you still write?" Jane asked casually as I sat across from her. "Sometimes," I said. "Between classes and work." "That's cute. You always were the thoughtful one." It stung. She said it like thoughtful meant pathetic. That visit ended with me crying in the hallway. Jane didn't follow me out. After that, we didn't speak for almost 4 months. I only heard about her when her name popped up on social media, at charity galas, fashion shows, events with people I'd only ever seen on reality TV. She was smiling in every photo, teeth whiter than I remembered, waist smaller, heels taller. She had become someone I didn't recognize. Someone who never once mentioned her past, her family, her sister. Until Richard's birthday. He was turning 30, and they were throwing some enormous party in the Hamptons. I wasn't invited, obviously. But that weekend, I got a call from someone named Alex Wu, one of Jane's team. He said she wanted to reconnect and that I should come by her place in the city the next day. I was suspicious, but I went. I still had hope. Maybe she'd come to her senses. She greeted me at the door in a silk robe, full makeup, barely blinked before turning around and saying, "I need a favor." A favor? It turned out she wanted me to pretend to be her roots for a video being made about Richard's philanthropic ventures. She wanted to show her humble beginnings, which apparently meant parading me around like a prop. I stared at her. "You mean like an accessory? Your poor sister who makes you look authentic." She rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic. It's just PR. I'm not your PR story," I snapped. "I'm your family." Jane's voice got cold. "We all have a role to play, Sarah. Don't pretend like you wouldn't take the opportunity if it came to you." I walked out. I didn't say goodbye. Later that night, I got a text. Just one line, "You've always been jealous." That was the moment something broke in me. Not a crack. A full collapse. Jealous? Of what? Of her fake friends, her hollow laugh, the way she had to constantly pretend she was someone else just to feel valuable? She used to be my sister. My best friend. Now she was a stranger in borrowed clothes. Dad died a month later. She didn't show up to the funeral. Her assistant sent flowers with a note that said, "Deepest regrets. Jane." That was it. People asked where she was. I said she was traveling. I didn't have the strength to tell them the truth, that she had chosen not to come, that she couldn't be bothered. In the weeks that followed, I cleaned out Dad's house by myself. Found old birthday cards Jane had made when we were kids. A letter she wrote when she was 11, promising to never let money or people or boys come between us. I cried over it for an hour. She never called. She was gone, and I was alone. And for the first time, I realized something that I never thought I'd feel. I didn't want her back. After Dad's funeral, there was silence between us for weeks. No texts. No calls. No half-hearted voice notes pretending to check in. It was as if Jane had removed me from her world completely. Then she posted the photo. It popped up on my feed late one night, after a shift at the bookstore where I worked part-time. My feet were sore, I smelled like old coffee and dust, and I was too tired to take off my shoes before collapsing on the couch. I opened Instagram just to numb myself for a few minutes. And there she was, lounging on the deck of a yacht somewhere in Greece, a champagne flute in one hand, Richard's arm around her waist. The water behind them looked like something from a travel brochure. The caption underneath read, "Some people will never know what it's like to have a real choice. Grateful every day for the life I built." I stared at it frozen. It wasn't just the tone. It wasn't just the smug smile on her face or the casual placement of a $40,000 watch near the edge of the frame. It was the implication. The cruelty. The thinly veiled dig aimed right at me. I didn't respond. What could I even say? But that was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, her posts got bolder. Harsher. She had started doing interviews for lifestyle magazines, nothing huge, but enough to build a presence. In one article, she talked about her difficult upbringing and how she cut ties with toxic influences to create the life she deserved. She didn't name me, but she didn't need to. At work, people began to whisper. My manager, Connie, pulled me aside one day while I was restocking mystery novels. "Is your sister the same Jane Hartfield that was just featured in Opulent magazine?" I nodded slowly. "She called her family background emotionally bankrupt," Connie said gently. "She said she had to separate from people who didn't understand ambition." I tried to laugh it off. She's dramatic. But inside something cracked. Not just from the betrayal, but from the realization that Jane didn't just forget me. She rewrote me. In her new narrative, I wasn't her sister. I was a problem. A symbol of everything she thought she had outgrown. One day I came home to find a letter taped to my door. Not a handwritten one, a formal typed envelope, embossed with a gold JH logo on the flap. Inside was an invitation to her private rebranding gala in New York. I didn't even know what that meant. The invite was tucked inside a brochure, Hartfield by Jane, a luxury lifestyle brand with wellness retreats, fashion lines, and something called inner status coaching. Her photo was everywhere, lounging on infinity pools, walking barefoot on white sand beaches, laughing over wine with vaguely European-looking models. And then there was the quote printed across the back of the invite in silver foil. Not everyone was born to live well. Some of us had to fight our way to the top and leave others behind. That night I drank an entire bottle of cheap wine by myself and cried until I felt like I was choking on air. My friend Ava, one of the only people left from college I still spoke to regularly, tried to talk me out of responding to Jane's provocations. "She wants a reaction," Ava said. "Don't give her that." But then Jane did something I couldn't ignore. She showed up at my work. It was a Saturday, busy and loud, with a local author doing a reading for children. I was behind the register ringing up a family's books when I looked up and saw her, hair slicked into a tight bun, oversized sunglasses perched on her nose, a bodyguard trailing behind her like a shadow. She wore white, an outfit that looked more suited for a Ken red carpet than a bookstore in Midtown. She waited until I was alone to approach the counter. "I was in the neighborhood," she said coolly. "Thought I'd drop in." I didn't answer. Just scanned a bookmark. Jane gave a tight smile. Still working here? I nodded. Still working. Thought you'd have moved on by now. Don't they pay minimum wage? I stared at her. Why are you here, Jane? She shrugged. Maybe I wanted to see you. Maybe I wanted to see if you were still exactly where I left you. Her voice was calm, casual, but her words were razors. I didn't flinch. I just said, I'm not trying to keep up with you. She smirked. You couldn't if you tried. Then she placed a hardcover copy of her upcoming memoir on the counter. It hadn't even been released yet. The title? The Price of Distance. Choosing Yourself at All Costs. I handed it back without a word. She took it, flipped her hair over her shoulder, and walked out without saying goodbye. That night, I googled the memoir. The leaked excerpts were worse than I expected. She wrote about growing up surrounded by emotional poverty, about a sister who clung to mediocrity like a drowning woman to an anchor. She said her family drained her energy and tried to chain her to their smallness. I couldn't breathe after reading it. I slammed my laptop shut and didn't sleep that night. More people started recognizing me. At first, it was subtle. Someone would pause too long when I gave them their change, or whisper to their friend while glancing at my name tag. One customer, a middle-aged woman with a Cartier bracelet, said with a fake smile, "It's so inspiring how different the two of you turned out. Ava tried to get me to quit the bookstore. You don't need to keep taking this. You're not a punching bag." But I didn't leave. Maybe part of me wanted to hold on to something real, something Jane couldn't warp or manipulate. It wasn't long before she started targeting people in my life. She posted a photo of herself at a retreat in Bali captioned, "Your energy is currency. Stop spending it on people who treat you like a clearance item." That same week, she followed my ex Liam on Instagram and liked 5 of his photos from 2 years ago. Subtle, but not subtle. I hadn't spoken to Liam in months, not since our quiet, civil breakup after realizing we were more codependent than compatible. But a few days after Jane's social media stunt, he messaged me. "Is your sister okay?" She DM'd me asking if I wanted to come to her brand launch party in Tulum. I wanted to scream. Jane didn't want Liam. She didn't want my job. She didn't even care about the people I loved. She just wanted me to feel small. One night I broke. I posted a story, just text on a black background. Sometimes the people who say they had to leave you behind are really just running from who they used to be. Within minutes, she responded. Not privately. Publicly. She reposted my story with a caption. "Sounds like someone's mad they didn't get invited to the top." Her followers flooded my inbox. Strangers called me bitter, jealous, irrelevant. One woman told me I should be grateful Jane even acknowledges you. I deleted the story. I deleted the app. I deleted every photo I'd ever posted that had her in it. A week later, I got a package in the mail. It was her book. No note, no return address. Inside the front cover, she'd written one line in her sharp, angular handwriting. "Some stories are meant to be rewritten. You had your chance." That was the final straw. I boxed up every photo, every letter, every memory that tied me to her and stuffed it into the back of my closet. I didn't throw it out. I couldn't. But I didn't want to look at it either. She had chosen this life. She had chosen this version of herself. And she had chosen to look down on everything we once were. I don't know what I expected to happen after Jane sent me her book. Maybe a final break. Maybe silence. But the worst part? A small, stupid piece of me still hoped she'd reach out with something real. An apology, even a confused text saying, "What happened to us?" It never came. Instead, she kept posting. Kept living this other life in designer heels and cryptic captions about energy boundaries and the curse of the unremarkable. Her followers worshipped her. Her face was on the cover of a luxury travel magazine. She gave TEDx talks about manifesting abundance. Meanwhile, I was working shifts at the bookstore, tutoring middle schoolers on the side, and visiting a senior center on weekends just to feel useful. One Saturday morning, while I was helping Ms. Louisa from the center sign up for Medicare, I had this overwhelming flash of memory. Jane and I at 11, delivering canned goods to our neighbor Mr. Godfrey after his hip surgery. We were kids. No money, barely any food at home. But Jane insisted we make a care package with our own cereal and snacks. She tied it with yarn. She even wrote, "Feel better soon, Mr. G," in blue crayon on a paper napkin. That was her. That was my sister. Where the hell did that girl go? I sat up that night thinking about it. I kept wondering if she was really gone, or if she was just buried under all the noise, the money, the cameras. And finally, I decided to try. Not beg, not plead. Try. So I started making a plan. I called up Angela, a community organizer I knew from the shelter I used to volunteer at. Angela had energy like a storm, blunt, brilliant, and always 10 steps ahead. When I told her what I wanted to do, she raised an eyebrow and said, "You want to wake Sleeping Gucci?" "I want to remind her," I said. "Not drag her. Just shake her out of it." Angela thought I was out of my mind. But she helped me anyway. We set up a series of local volunteer events. Basic, honest work. Soup kitchens. Clothing drives. A neighborhood cleanup in a part of the city Jane used to live in. No cameras. No PR. No curated Instagram captions. I emailed Jane's assistant, Chloe, a 26-year-old girl who spoke like a press release, and told her Jane was invited to attend Reconnection Weekend, an off-the-radar community project focused on service and impact. I deliberately didn't sign my name. To my surprise, Jane responded. Or Chloe did, but it was a yes. She arrived on Saturday morning in a white SUV that looked like it belonged in a car museum. She stepped out in a pastel trench coat and leather boots I recognized from a Paris runway show. Behind her was her dog, some tiny, trembling white fluff ball named Bijou. The kind of dog that probably had its own skincare regimen. Angela gave me a look and mouthed, "This should be fun." Jane looked around the shelter's back alley like she was waiting for someone to offer her gloves and a bottled water. "This is it?" she asked. I nodded. "Yep. First stop, donation sorting. Then food prep." She stared at the overflowing bins of used clothes like they were radioactive. Angela clapped her hands. "All right, people. Let's get those sleeves up." For the next 2 hours, Jane sulked through sorting baby shoes, half glancing at labels like she was doing inventory at a dollar store. She didn't speak to anyone unless spoken to, and when I tried to get her to chat with a teen volunteer named Kamira, she looked offended. During the lunch break, we sat on the back steps of the center eating sandwiches wrapped in foil. Jane peeled hers open like it was a crime scene. "Is this bologna?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Classic." She sniffed it. "I haven't had bologna since I was 15. "Exactly." She rolled her eyes and took a single bite. "Do you know Bijou only eats hand-minced quail and duck pate?" I blinked. "What?" "She gets it delivered twice a week. From a private pet chef." "You have a pet chef?" "She costs more than my first apartment. I spent $7,000 importing her from a breeder in Kyoto." I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. "That's a car," I said. "That's exclusivity," she replied. By the time we moved to the next location, an old church basement where we were bagging groceries for immigrant families, Jane was losing patience. She kept checking her phone, flipping her hair, glancing toward the door like it was a hostage situation. When Angela asked her to help carry boxes, Jane looked stunned. "I didn't know this was manual labor." Angela didn't even blink. "Volunteering's not a vibe, sweetheart. It's work." Jane narrowed her eyes but lifted one box, barely. That night, after the event, I offered to drive her home. She said she had a car waiting, but for some reason, she followed me to my 10-year-old Corolla anyway. As I drove, she tapped her acrylic nails on the window. "What is this supposed to prove?" I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "That you still know how to care about things." She scoffed. "You think a few sandwiches and some stained onesies are going to change who I am now? I think you've forgotten who you were." "And who was I?" "Some girl in patched-up shoes eating canned ravioli for dinner." "No. You were the one who used to sneak snacks to kids at school. The one who helped me tape up Dad's broken chair. The one who cried when that stray cat got hit outside our window." She went quiet. Then she said, "That girl was soft. She didn't survive. You didn't need to kill her to move forward, Jane." She turned to me, eyes cold. "You didn't come here to reconnect. You came here to punish me." "I came because I still believe you're in there." She opened the car door before I'd even parked. "Don't try to fix me, Sarah. I'm not broken. I'm upgraded." And then she was gone. The next day, she posted a photo from her penthouse balcony, rose in hand, city skyline behind her. The caption read, "Some people try to drag you back into the shadows they never left. Always rise above." I stared at the screen, shaking. Not because I was angry, but because I realized she wasn't just resisting change. She was running from anything real. And no matter how many charity events I threw, I couldn't make her turn around. I didn't expect to hear from her again. After the volunteer weekend, Jane ghosted me. No texts. No posts. Just silence. It had happened before, long stretches where she vanished into her curated world, but this one felt different. Heavier. I thought maybe I'd pushed too hard. Maybe she'd cut me off for good this time. Then, almost 3 weeks later, I got the text. "Can we talk?" Just us. No press, no projects. It was short. No emojis. No tone. But my chest tightened when I saw it. I read it 5 times before answering. Where and when? She sent an address. It wasn't one of her usual spots. No rooftop lounge or glassbox cafe in Soho. It was a corner coffee shop tucked behind a bookstore on 6th Avenue. A place called Holden's, with scratched wooden floors and chipped mugs. I'd been there a dozen times during college. It was normal. Almost too normal. I showed up 15 minutes early, hands stuffed in my coat pockets, wondering if she'd changed her mind. The place was nearly empty, just a barista behind the counter, a girl with blue hair and chipped black nail polish named Riley, who looked like she knew how to roll her eyes in 4 languages. I ordered a black coffee and waited by the window. Jane walked in 2 minutes past noon. And I didn't recognize her. She wasn't in makeup. Not even mascara. Her hair was tied back in a loose braid, and she wore a gray hoodie, faded jeans, and sneakers. Actual sneakers. Not designer slip-ons with gold eyelets and matching handbags. No bodyguard. No phone in her hand. No entrance. She just walked in, spotted me, and sat down across from me like we were still 18. "Hi," she said. It was the first time I'd heard her voice sound unsure in years. I stared at her. She looked smaller. Not physically, emotionally. Like she was carrying something too heavy for too long. "You okay?" I asked. She gave a soft laugh. "No. Not really." Riley came by and set down a chai latte without asking. "Your usual," she told Jane, then walked away. I blinked. "You've been here before?" Jane nodded. "Only place I can go where no one expects me to post about it." We sat in silence for a moment. The espresso machine hissed. A man behind us typed aggressively on a laptop. The world continued as if nothing was happening, but something was. Jane took a deep breath. I messed up. I looked at her. Really looked. There were dark circles under her eyes. Her cuticles were chewed up. Her lips were cracked. I thought if I worked hard enough to fit in with them, I'd stop feeling like I didn't belong, she said. But it never worked. No matter what I bought, what I wore, what parties I got invited to, I still felt like I was pretending. You were pretending, I said softly. She nodded. I thought that was the point. I didn't know what to say to that. I told myself I was upgrading, she went on. Evolving. Becoming the best version of myself. That's what they all say, don't let your past define you. So I cut everything out. The house, the old friends, you. Especially you. Because you knew who I really was. Her voice cracked on the last word. I sat back, breath caught in my throat. I thought if I distanced myself from you, I'd be safe, she whispered. Like no one could drag me back. I clenched my jaw. You didn't just distance yourself, Jane. You erased me. Tears welled in her eyes. She didn't blink them away. I know. God, I know. I saw it happening, and I kept telling myself it was necessary. That I had to do it to survive out there. Out where? I asked. In a world where people trade friends like handbags and only care about the next gala theme? She laughed through her tears. Exactly. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small, folded napkin. I recognized it instantly. The one she wrote to Mr. Godfrey when we were kids. Feel better soon, Mr. G, written in that clumsy blue crayon. I found this last week, she said. It was in a shoebox. I don't even remember keeping it. My stomach flipped. Where? At Mom's old apartment. I stared at her. I went there, she said quietly. I needed to remember. I didn't speak. Jane looked down. Sarah, I spent 10 grand last month on a single dinner. 10 grand. It didn't even taste good. It was oysters and squid foam and some microscopic beef from some cow raised on jazz and lavender. I almost left. And all I could think about, she continued, was how we used to eat spaghettios with ketchup and still laugh till we cried. I nodded. We didn't need to prove anything back then. She bit her lip. I think I lost myself. I leaned forward. You did lose yourself. She winced. But, I added, you just walked into this coffee shop without a camera crew or a stylist. That's something. She gave me a faint smile. I didn't come here to apologize. I raised an eyebrow. I came here to ask if I'm still someone you could love. That broke me. All the bitterness, all the silence, all the public humiliation and twisted captions, it all burned out in 1 second of vulnerability. You're still my sister, I said. But I don't trust you yet. Her face fell. And that's not cruelty, I added. That's truth. She nodded. I deserve that. Another silence passed. The coffee cooled between us. I don't know how to go back, she said. You don't have to, I replied. Just stop running forward blindly. Jane stared out the window. After a while, she said, you know what my manager said when I told her I was skipping the Hamptons retreat this weekend? What? She said, but you'll lose your place. Like we're all in some invisible line to a throne that doesn't exist. And you? I told her I was tired of standing. That made me smile. Then she reached across the table and touched my hand. It was light, uncertain, but real. I'm not ready to be whole, she said. But I'm ready to stop pretending I'm not broken. I nodded. That's enough for today. I didn't expect anything to actually change. Not really. People can cry in a coffee shop, say beautiful words, even mean them in the moment, and still go back to who they were the next day. Especially someone like Jane. Especially after the world she'd built around herself. But 2 days after our conversation at Holden's, I got an email. Not a text. Not a message from Chloe or a tag in some shiny PR post. A real email. Subject line, can I do this right? Inside was a Google Doc link. I clicked it. It was a draft of a public letter. Not a press release. Not a scripted apology with brand-appropriate tone. It started like this. To my family and to the people who knew me before I was anything other than Jane, I'm sorry for forgetting who I was and for treating the people who made me who I am like they didn't matter. The rest of it wasn't perfect. There were lines that still sounded a little rehearsed, a little defensive, but the rawness was there. She acknowledged abandoning Dad. She said my name. She said it more than once. To my sister Sarah, who carried things I ran from, I was cruel to you because I couldn't face myself. You never stopped being real, and I hated that because I needed to pretend I was something more. By the time I got to the end of the letter, I was shaking. She signed it. Just Jane. Not Heartfield by Jane. Just me. 2 days later, she posted it on her verified accounts with no caption. Then she went quiet. 4 days. No ads. No filters. No stories of mineral facials or Bali sunsets. Just silence. People noticed. The comments were brutal at first. Too little, too late. You treated your family like dirt and now you want sympathy? Let's see how long this lasts. There were memes, screenshots, even think pieces dissecting whether it was a calculated PR move. But then something strange started happening. People started sharing stories. Other siblings, estranged relatives, even strangers, about family fights, selfish choices, hard goodbyes. It wasn't sympathy, but it was something. Connection. A crack in the wall Jane had built. I didn't reply to the email. I didn't know how to. But a week later, she showed up again. At my apartment. No makeup. No glam. No chauffeur. Just Jane in a black hoodie, holding 2 bags of groceries. I figured you'd still eat cereal and frozen burritos, she said. But I got eggs and real cheese just in case. I let her in. She didn't look around the way she used to, didn't wrinkle her nose at my couch or squint at the mismatched plates. She just walked in, set the bags down, and sat on the floor like we were still 19 and hiding from Mom's hangover. We didn't talk about the apology. Instead, we talked about Mom. I told her about the voicemail Mom left the day she moved to Arizona, about how she sounded scared but tried to act like she was excited. Jane listened. She didn't roll her eyes. She didn't deflect. She just sat there and listened. That was the first real change. The second came when she reached out to Aunt Lydia. Now, Aunt Lydia is the family judge, jury, and executioner. She's Dad's oldest sister, lives in Jersey, runs her household like a military base. She had written Jane off completely after the book, told me she wouldn't waste prayers on a girl who weaponized her own blood. So when I heard Jane had emailed her, I braced for disaster. But Lydia surprised me. She called me after the meeting. She cried Sarah. In my kitchen. Right by the stove. I almost dropped my phone. She told me she remembered the Sunday roast I used to make when she was 10. Said she wanted to learn how to make it. Wait, did she? She came back the next day with an apron and took notes. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She's trying, Lydia said quietly. God help me, I believe she is. It wasn't just Lydia. Jane showed up to Uncle Manny's barbecue the next week, dressed down alone, carrying 3 store-bought pies and an awkward smile. Our cousin Caleb tried to bait her with a joke about designer coleslaw, and instead of snapping back, she laughed. I'll eat anything that didn't cost more than my first car, she said. That silenced him. She spent most of the afternoon helping the kids with water balloons and trying to console Aunt Rita's baby when he wouldn't stop crying. She sat next to me during the meal, and for once, she didn't try to control the conversation or steer it toward her projects. She just asked about my students. I told her about Mateo, a quiet 6th grader who finally read his first book cover to cover after I introduced him to The Giver. Jane teared up. I remember reading that with you, she said. On the porch. With bug spray and lemonade. She remembered. That hit harder than anything else. A few days later, she showed up to the shelter again, alone this time. Angela called me after. She didn't tell anyone who she was, Angela said. Didn't even flinch when she was asked to mop the bathroom. I laughed. She just did it, Angela continued. Mopped the hell out of that floor. Even complimented the janitor on his playlist. I had to sit down. Then came the real test. Mom. Jane hadn't spoken to her in nearly 4 years. Last she'd mentioned her, she'd called her a ghost I can't afford to chase. But now she wanted to try. She flew to Phoenix on a Tuesday. Alone. She didn't post about it. Didn't document it. I only found out when Mom texted me a blurry photo of the 2 of them on the porch, both barefoot, eating oranges. She stayed 3 days, Mom wrote. We cried more than we talked. But I think I saw her again. The real her. Still, the family watched her carefully. They didn't forget the interviews. The captions. The slaps disguised as growth. Even I was cautious. We waited for the next slip-up. The next branded healing retreat or condescending podcast quote. But it didn't come. Instead, Jane deleted half her social media. She kept only one profile. She changed the bio from brand architect, global strategist, lifestyle alchemist to learning. Trying. Still Jane. She stopped posting luxury trips. Instead, she posted pictures from walks. A photo of a pigeon missing a toe. A napkin with lipstick doodles. A street musician with a broken violin. People noticed. Her following shrank. She lost sponsorships. But she didn't stop. One night, I asked her why. She was curled up on my couch, in old sweats, sipping peppermint tea. Do you remember the first time we shared a diary? She asked. 5th grade, I said. We kept it under your mattress. We used to write down our wins and secrets. And snacks, I added. We rated vending machine snacks on a scale of meh to worth stealing. Jane smiled. I think somewhere along the way I replaced our diary with the internet. And started performing instead of remembering. She looked up at me. Her eyes were raw, open. I'm done performing. I believed her. But still, change is fragile. Trust doesn't come back all at once. So we watched her. As a family. And slowly, day by day, we started seeing it. She came early to gatherings. Stayed late to clean up. She called Aunt Bev just to hear about her cats. She texted me pictures of weird signs and asked for my opinion on books. She showed up. And didn't ask for anything. For the first time in years, Jane didn't want to be admired. She just wanted to be accepted. It's strange what hope looks like after you've stopped expecting anything good. It's never fireworks or big speeches or sudden forgiveness. It's smaller than that, quieter. Like when someone you thought was long gone starts remembering things about you. Not the dramatic stuff. The details. The way you like your coffee. The song you used to play when you were mad. The inside joke from 7th grade that no one else in the world would understand. That's how it started with Jane and me. Not with a big transformation or a viral apology. But with small, hesitant moments where she acted like a sister again. Sometimes awkward. Sometimes clumsy. But undeniably real. The first time I felt something shift was during a walk through Prospect Park. It was early spring, One of those raw March afternoons where the sun is out but the wind still slices through your jacket. Jane had texted me that morning. Need air. Need you. Walk. She met me on the corner in jeans, a green windbreaker, and white sneakers that already had dirt on them. That was the first sign. We walked in silence for a while, dodging joggers and wet patches on the path. Jane pointed out squirrels like she was discovering them for the first time. We passed a street violinist near the lake, and she dropped a $5 bill into his case without a word. I saw her fingers hesitate near her bag as she pulled out her wallet. And that's when it happened. I almost brought my Stella Zegna clutch, she said suddenly. But I remembered how obnoxious it looked last time. I looked at her, bracing for the follow-up. The subtle brag. The price tag. She blinked. Sorry. That wasn't necessary. I'm still working on the filter. I waited. She added, it was $12,000. Stupid, right? I shrugged. Depends. Does it do your taxes? Jane actually laughed. A real, full laugh that surprised even her. I miss this, she said quietly. Walking. You making fun of me. I've never stopped. Yeah, she said. But I stopped letting you. After that, things began to settle into a rhythm. We started meeting every Thursday. No big plans. No events. Just coffee, or a walk, or sitting in my apartment watching crime documentaries and arguing about suspects like we were detectives. She never brought her assistant. She turned off her phone. One Thursday, she showed up with 2 pints of cherry sorbet and a single DVD. Do you remember this? She asked, holding it up. It was a bootleg copy of Now and Then, the one we used to watch at least once a month as kids. Our copy had been scratched, skipping every time the girls rode their bikes through the neighborhood. I found this in a box at Mom's, she said. Still skips. We watched it on my crusty old DVD player, and sure enough, it froze right on the exact same frame. We laughed so hard we cried. Another time she brought a board game, the game of life. Our original one with half the cards missing and the spinner barely turning. We played it on the floor, using pennies and bottle caps as stand-ins. Halfway through, she drew a card that said, you won a beauty contest. Collect $100. She held it up and grinned. Finally. Validation. You've already won, I muttered. You had a stylist for your dog. Had, she corrected. Past tense. Oh. She quit after I told her Bijou was going on a kibble diet. I raised an eyebrow. You took your dog off artisan duck and microgreens? She's been farting less. So that's a win. Little by little, the absurdity of her old life became something we laughed at instead of danced around. But not everyone was ready to forgive. Uncle Manny still gave her side eyes at family dinners. Cousin Caleb wouldn't engage at all. Even Ava, my closest friend, was cautious. She's charming, Ava said, but charm doesn't erase damage. I know. You sure you're not getting suckered again? She shows up, I said. Not in a car service or with a gift bag. Just her. Still, even I had my limits. One Sunday, she slipped. We were at an antique fair in Williamsburg, walking past a stall selling vintage jewelry. Jane picked up a small, tarnished bracelet with little bird charms dangling from it. This reminds me of that piece I bought in Barcelona, she said. The one with the Peruvian opal inlay. That one was like... She stopped. Blinked. Took a breath. I don't need to finish that sentence, do I? I said nothing. She looked down. Sorry. Still unlearning. I noticed, I said quietly. But then she surprised me. She bought the bracelet. Not the expensive one. The tarnished one. She gave the vendor a 20 and didn't haggle. Didn't ask for a bag. She just turned to me and said, you wear it. It feels like you. It didn't cost 12 grand. It probably didn't cost $10 to make. But I haven't taken it off since. Some of the most important changes weren't even about what Jane did, but what she didn't do. She stopped comparing everything to luxury. She stopped referring to people as valuable connections or low-vibration energy. She stopped talking about success as a race. Once, I caught her sitting on my balcony alone, staring out at the skyline. What are you thinking? I asked. She smiled. That I used to think this view wasn't enough. And now, I think it's more real than anything I've seen from a penthouse. We still stumbled sometimes. There was a dinner at Aunt Rita's where she casually mentioned having flown to Tokyo just for ramen once. The room went quiet. She caught herself immediately. I was a jackass, she said flatly. Everyone blinked. I thought it made me interesting. It didn't. And just like that, tension broke. Even Aunt Rita gave a half nod. Another time she and I got into a fight. It was over something stupid. I had borrowed her sweater, and she made a joke about how I always take things without asking. It hit a nerve. I snapped. She snapped back. Old habits resurfaced. Words like ungrateful and self-righteous got tossed. I nearly walked out. But then she said, I don't want to win. I want us to be okay. That sentence hit like a truck. No defense. No deflection. Just that. We sat in silence for a long time after that. I told her about my therapist. How I'd started seeing someone a year ago to deal with the fallout of our estrangement. I thought she'd mock it. Instead, she nodded. I started seeing one too, she said. Her name's Celeste. She's 60, wears sequin scarves, and calls bullshit like a sport. Sounds perfect. She says I'm addicted to validation. She's not wrong. I know. We didn't hug or cry. We just ate microwave popcorn and watched a documentary about serial killers. And in that strange, quiet space, I realized we were healing. Not all at once, but day by day, choice by choice. The biggest moment came when Jane did something I never saw coming. She declined an award. She'd been nominated for a Transformative Voice in Wellness Culture award by one of those glossy, celebrity-heavy lifestyle magazines. They wanted her to speak, to stand on a stage in a diamond gown and talk about growth. She wrote them an email that simply said, "I'm not done becoming someone worth listening to. Please give the platform to someone who is." She showed it to me before hitting send. "I don't need to be praised for doing the right thing," she said. "Not anymore. I don't know what the future holds for her. For us. But I do know this. When we sit together now, there are no brands between us. No altitude of wealth. Just two girls, older, bruised, learning to speak each other's language again. And for the first time in a long, long time, I believe we might actually make it back."